All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we get started, I need you to do me a favor. If you would like this video and share it with your friends and family, we want everyone to join in tonight to get this very important information that we're sharing. We're glad that you've joined us for this virtual family engagement event. We know here in Cumberland County Schools that when families and educators join forces, amazing things happen for our young people. As part of the Cumberland County Schools Strategic Plan, we have created an initiative called Cumberland Family Academy. And it's all about providing families with information and resources to support their child's welfare in the classroom and beyond. And so we're always listening to families about innovative ways to get information and resources to them. I am Dr. Lindsay Whitley, and I serve as the Associate Superintendent for Communications and Community Engagement. And I'm so thrilled that you've taken out time this evening to join us. So whether you're at home, if you're in your car now, be careful. Just listen, don't watch, just listen. Wherever you're at, even if you have to come back later and watch this video, we want to get this very important information. We have a very important topic tonight. We're going to discuss FAFSA. I think that's how you say it. How do y'all pronounce that?
FAFSA.
FAFSA. Okay, y'all say it with me. FAFSA. 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 Okay, so we're going to talk about FAFSA tonight and what every college-bound student needs to know about the application process. And so tonight we are blessed here in Cumberland. We have strategically selected a very diverse group of panelists for tonight's event, including CCS's Career Pathways Coordinator and representatives from across various post-secondary institutions. So if you continue watching tonight, let me tell you what you can expect. We're going to break down the FAFSA essentials, and we're going to answer your questions live. So if you have questions about financial aid, funding for college, make sure you list that in the chat. Throughout the evening, we will go to the chat and we will take as many questions as we can, and we will try to provide you with some answers tonight on the spot. So don't hesitate to put those questions down there throughout the evening. So let's start off now. We want to meet all of our wonderful panelists. Tonight, we're very fortunate to have Brittany Raines. She is the Career Pathways Coordinator for Cumberland County Schools. Next, we have Timothy Sampson, the Director of Financial Aid at UNC Pembroke. And next to him is Tiffany Youngblood, who is the Assistant Director of Student Financial Aid Services at FTCC. And also joining us is Crystal Baker, the Student Services Specialist in the Office of Scholarships and Financial Aid at Fayetteville State University. And last but not least, we have Christopher Livingston. He is a financial aid counselor at Methodist University. Now, before we hear from these talented, informative panelists, we want you to once again take a minute to like this video and share it so that others can take advantage of this wonderful information that will be shared this evening. Once again, remember, if you have questions, if you already have some questions in your mind right now that you want to learn about tonight as it relates to financial aid, please list those in the chat, all right? So to kick things off, let's go right to the heart of the discussion tonight. Ms. Raines, if you would kick us off, you know, in our world of acronyms, can you share what FAFSA is and why it's so important for our college-bound students and their families?
Yes, I'd be delighted to answer that question. I am Brittany Raines, Career Pathways Coordinator for Cumberland County Schools. And what is the FAFSA? What does that even stand for? It's an acronym that stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And why is it so important that college-bound students and their families learn about this and sharing this session tonight? Is because making the choice to go to college as a student, that is a major life decision that the student is making, and it should not be taken lightly. Decisions students and families make today can affect them for years to come and even generations to come. And so learning about all financial aid options and avenues that can help lessen the financial costs to families is pertinent. And completing the FAFSA allows students the opportunity to apply for and receive federal student aid. And this unlocks the door to scholarships, grants, and loans, which ultimately helps many families to make attending and being successful in college affordable, attainable, and a reality.
Wow, so this is a very important topic tonight. I know there are a lot of individuals who desire to go to college, who want to know, one, how to pay for college. And sometimes we do have to go with loans, but even some of the money that we don't have to pay back. And I know a lot of that is going to be talked about tonight. So thank you for that very important information. Let's move on to Mr. Sampson. Can you enlighten us? I know sometimes applying for college and applying for FAFSA, it can be somewhat challenging. Can you talk tonight about some of the challenges that families may face when completing their applications?
Sure, thanks for that. So my name is Timothy Sampson. I serve as the Director of Financial Aid and Scholarships at the University of North Carolina at Pembroke. And so talking about challenges tonight with the FAFSA. So let me first set the stage about the FAFSA. So 24-25, this academic year that we're currently in, was the first time we have FAFSA simplification, or the first brand new FAFSA that we have seen in a long time. So some of the challenges that we talk about tonight may not be the challenges that you see in the 25-26 FAFSA year, but we want to bring it to your attention so you're aware of those and be able to know how to navigate those throughout the time with your FAFSA. So first I want to bring up is the FSA ID, which is really our key to the FAFSA to be able to log in to the FAFSA to even complete the first step for that. When we talk about students with undocumented parents, that was one of our big challenges we had for the 24-25 year, is those students, again, like I said, with undocumented parents. So parents completing the verification tool through TransUnion, answering those verification questions to be able to verify their identity. We know that the FSA ID takes a couple of days with the Social Security Administration to verify the information, but our undocumented parents was taking just a little bit longer because of the fact of the verifying their identity and who they were. So when you're completing the FAFSA, if you do have family members that are undocumented that you are using as contributors on the FAFSA, please make sure that you wait until you receive that email from TransUnion that their verification has been completed before you start the FAFSA process. One thing I do want to bring to your attention, one of the things that we had for 24-25 academic year was that we had a workaround for that process. And so when parents would go in, undocumented parents would have to go in first to complete their FAFSA. And once they open the FAFSA and start completing their process or their steps, then the student was able to log into the FAFSA and do their part. So that was a workaround. Hopefully with the new FAFSA for 25-26, we have fixed that problem. But again, it's hopefully is a fixed. But if it's not, your financial aid specialist or your counselors across your institutions should be able to help you navigate through that. Another challenge that we saw was families using their manual data and their FTI data. So that's the data that transfers in from the IRS. So putting both of those on the FAFSA can cause a conflict and information that we have to verify at the institution when it comes to the FAFSA, because it is called conflicting data. Because some of our parents and students was putting some information manually and it wasn't matching what came from IRS. So again, in our office, it's called conflicting data. So we had to resolve that. So it could take a little bit longer for your FAFSA to be processed if you are having some of those conflicting data information and having to bring that information in to the office. Another big challenge we saw with the 24-25 academic year is that folks thought they had submitted their FAFSA, but really they were still in their draft mode or still in an incomplete status. So when you're looking at your FAFSA and you're completing it for 25-26 year, just make sure we have students to understand that there are certain categories of completion of your FAFSA. So you have a draft status, which means that you started it. Sections of the application are not complete, so it's still in a draft form. In progress means that we got the consent, we have the approvals, we have the signatures that we needed, but the FAFSA still has not been submitted to Department of Education for processing. The third status is an in review, which means that it has been submitted and the federal government is working through that process of verifying the FAFSA and getting that information to your institutions. And the last stage is process, which means it's been processed and it has been sent to the schools that you've listed on your FAFSA to get your information. Some other challenges that we saw was more about reading the FAFSA and having the information part. So when we talk about unsub only, That was a new thing that was added to the FAFSA for 24-25, which means that when you click the button that you want to unsub only, that doesn't mean that you want loans. Loans is part of the financial aid package. What that really meant was that your parents was unwilling to provide any financial documents for you or any financial data. And so you were only eligible for unsub loans at our institutions. We had a lot of students who checked that box and a lot of students who that was not the case, and parents were willing to provide that information and could have potentially lost out on some financial aid awarding because they put that on their FAFSA. So that's one thing when you're looking through those, just be very careful when you're reading through the FAFSA to make sure you're filling out the information correctly. And when you talk about dependency questions, there are certain things that we talk about that for students to be required or to make them independent for the academic year, has to be 24 years of age or older, has to be married, in the military. There's some certain dependency questions that we have to ask in the financial office that you ask in your FAFSA to make you independent or dependent. So if you have any questions about your dependency questions on your FAFSA, please reach out to your schools, to these institutions, and we'll be glad to help you through the process and walk you through what that really means. I don't know if there's any other challenges that our other panelists saw. Is there anything we missed when we talk about challenges?
I think, some of the challenges that we saw is that, tax mismatch when, spouses or parents may have different marital statuses and they did not put the correct information. We had conflicting information on that. So it's very important at the beginning of the FAFSA application that you answers the questions correctly so that we can determine the eligibility. Sometimes if the parent is divorced, we've had a lot of our younger students, if the parent is divorced and remarried, they're not adding the step parent's information. So as of the day, it's like, what is the marital status as of today? So you have to answer the question accordingly so those questions can be answered and provide the accurate data on the FAFSA application. So that was a big thing for us that we came across.
And I want to add that some things that we saw were when they were doing the dependency override questions, they were asking if you were homeless or at risk of homelessness. That was a contributing factor to a lot of conflicting information. A lot of students were putting that they were at risk of being homeless and they really weren't, or they were already 24 and above. And that question pretty much just trying to determine if you're a dependent or an independent student.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
And I think families and students need to understand when they put those questions on their FAFSA and check it, we have to verify that. So that is information that we have to verify requests from the family. So it could take a little bit longer to get FAFSAs completed because we're trying to figure out if you really are homeless or what's that really look like for families across the state.
So there is a verification process.
Yes.
So if I identify that I'm homeless, or if I identify some of these things, it's not like they're just gonna take my word for it. Y'all have to verify it.
Yes.
Okay, good deal. Anything else? Challenges? Any other challenges y'all wanna raise?
And I also want to mention that especially for those dependency status, most of our high school counselors already have some things that will identify like water to court or things like that. So students will already have that documentation at the high school. So when they're ready to go to their community colleges or university, all they need to do is probably talk with their counselor to get those applicable documentations to just so that they can have. So if they answer the question that I was at risk, homeless, or water to court or anything like that, they will have that documentation on file because like Mr. Sampson said, anything that they check that will question that dependency status, our institution will verify it. So they will have to have supporting documentation to support what they answered on the FAFSA.
Good deal. So if you're just joining tonight, we have a wonderful group of panelists here tonight. We're talking about FAFSA. We're talking about helping all of our young people who desire to go to college to have the resources to go. And there's a lot of great information being shared. So I think we were just now talking about some of the challenges with the FAFSA. And did anyone else have anything to add?
I'll say something.
All right.
Legal guardianship. I see that a lot of students list yes to legal guardianship when they're actually already with their parents. Legal guardianship is something of a special court type of case where you're not living with your parents. So legal guardianship itself does not pertain to your actual biological parents.
And add to that,
Yes.
Legal guardianship,
It's
legal
not-
guardianship and legal custody is
are
not
two
the same thing. Okay, so
Yes.
just make sure when you are providing that documentation to the schools, that if you're saying you're on legal guardianship, that documentation does truly say legal guardianship.
And I promise you, we're not trying to scare you away.
No, we're not.
Not.
From applying for this federal student aid, but I think the key is to start early, to work ahead of time, to watch videos such as tonight's session, to learn everything you can about the financial aid process, just so that you can make sure that you're prepared well in advance, so that you'll have all of the documentation. Now, I know at times there are certain priority deadlines and all of that, so that you can get the maximum amount of money. And so tonight, it's all about getting you the information ahead of time so that you can prepare. So I'm just so thankful that we have a room full of panelists who are really experts in this subject. Do me a favor, if you're watching tonight, take a minute to like this video. Also share it on your news feed, because we want everyone in Cumberland County and beyond to have this information about how to afford and pay for post-secondary educational experiences. So thank you so much for sharing this great information. You know, as we think about free application for federal student aid, we want to take a minute to take some questions from the audience. So if you have questions tonight, don't forget that all you have to do is place your questions in the chat, and throughout the evening, we will go through the chat and we will answer any questions. So I don't see any questions right at the moment, but we will come back later. All right? So speaking of what to expect, next we're gonna go to Miss Youngblood from FTCC. And I understand that you're hosting some FAFSA nights, just to help families complete their applications. And so we wanna just enlighten us tonight on the key components that are needed to complete an application, and what types of things should families bring if they wanna come to one of your nights.
Thank you. My name is Tiffany Youngblood. I am one of the assistant directors in the financial aid office at Fayetteville Technical Community College. And you only need 6 things to get started with the FAFSA application. And like Mr. Sampson was talking about, some of the challenges, a lot of times when students and parents are not fully prepared, that can cause challenges on completing the FAFSA. So the first thing that every student and parent will need to do, they will need to complete a student aid account, and that is better known as your FSA ID and password. When I'm always talking to our students out in the community, I always tell them that it's very important that your email address is not your school email address, because after you graduate, you will no longer have your Cumberland County email. So I always tell them to create them a professional email for their business and scholarships and things like that. And parents, I know that we have been known to take care of a lot of stuff for our students, but you have to have a separate email, and the student has to have a separate email, because this is your digital signature. If you want to keep up with your students' email and things, I always tell them to kind of keep everything with their tax data, but just keep in mind that the student email and your password are separate, because we've had students who would say, well, my parents created my FSA ID and password, or my cell phone number is the same as my parents' cell phone number. That is not possible, because someone is not going to be able to create their FSA ID and password. Your contributors' information, that is something that is new on the 24-25 and going forward. We didn't use the word contributor. It was parents' information or spouse information. So a lot of times students might not understand who is the contributor for my FAFSA application. So studentaid.gov has a tool that you can use to find out who is the contributor on my FAFSA application, and it's located on studentaid.gov, and it says my FAFSA parent wizard, and it's on the studentaid.gov website, and it's just a few series of questions that you can ask, and it'll let you know who is the person that will participate on that form. And you can also review my parents, a contributor, when I fill out my FAFSA form, and it's the infographic. The tax year that you would use for the FAFSA application, it is the 2023 federal tax return. One helpful fact that you must understand is that if you do not give consent to have your taxes transferred to the FAFSA application, you will not be considered for financial aid. And it'll be a box at the top of the page. So when the student completes the FAFSA, there's going to be a box saying, do you give consent to add this information on the FAFSA? When the parent completes the FAFSA, the parent has the right to give consent or not consent to add their tax data. But just keep in mind that if any person chooses not to provide consent, our financial aid administrators will not receive your FAFSA application. So it's very important that the consent is given. A lot of students will say, well, my parents may have made too much money in 2023. Don't worry about that. Please use that tax data. There is other provisions that can be done at the financial aid office. It's called an adjustment to family income. You can ask these questions when you go to any financial aid office that you have selected for the school of choice that you have chosen, and they can help you with seeing if you're eligible for other funding at that time. But you have to use the 23 taxes first. And the next thing that you would need to do is you would have to have records of child support received, and that's obviously from the contributor. Record of assets. And what are assets? Assets is the current balance of cash, checking, and savings account. And please note that cash, checking, and saving accounts are considered as an asset, not an investment. Current net worth of your business or investment in farms, and current net worth of investments. And you can list up to 20 schools on the FAFSA. I always tell my students that even if you haven't applied for the institution, go ahead and select the schools that you are thinking about applying for, because you don't want to keep going in and, changing things on your FAFSA application. But like Mr. Sampson has said before, you want to make sure that you decide what school that you want to go to. And if you're awarded or been accepted to a school, that if you've been awarded to multiple schools, you will need to talk to the other institutions to cancel those awards, because you can't get aid at 2 schools. But for right now, I think that is all that I have for
Good deal.
what you need.
So it sounds like preparation is key.
It is very much key.
Planning in advance, getting all the necessary paperwork and records, because I would think that if one of these pieces of information is not available, it can hold up the entire process.
It can hold up the process, and also because the difference between like a community college and university, and I know Mr. Sampson can probably speak upon that, is that if you wait to the last minute to do your FAFSA application, you can miss out on funding. For students that are going to a university, that could be placement for dorms. Am I correct, Mr. Sampson?
That's correct.
And so that is one of the benefits of the FAFSA being available so early, like October and December. When we're in a community college, our classes start in August, but you don't want to wait until 2 weeks before classes start to complete your FAFSA application. So you definitely want to get your things done, your FAFSA application done as soon as possible, so that you'll be able to know your eligibility.
Wow, such great information. Work ahead. We know, for example, you may not be going to school until next fall in August, but you don't want to wait until the last minute. You want to work ahead to have all of your information processed in a
Yes.
timely manner. That
Oh,
way,
yes.
if it kicks it back, you can work ahead to go ahead and fix it
Yes.
and get the necessary information. If you're just joining us tonight, thank you so much for joining us for this very important topic. We're talking about FAFSA, and we're talking about just preparing our young people to be able to pay for their post-secondary education of choice tonight. Everything from loans and scholarships and other federal aid. We want all that our students are eligible to receive, for them to be able to receive those funds to help pay for their education. So do me a favor and please share tonight, like this video, make sure everyone in your circle of influence can know about this important information. Okay, we're gonna go to the chat. I do believe we do have our first question of the evening. Drum roll, please. Do the students have to wait to be in the 11th grade to apply for FAFSA? And I'm just reading it as written. Do the students have to wait to be in the 11th grade to apply for FAFSA? Who would like to take that one?
Okay. So normally, students will need to wait till their senior year to be able to apply for FAFSA, because we don't want you to, the FAFSA that we normally have available is normally the current one, which is 24-25, and like this year we have 25-26, which is for students who's going to school in the fall of 25. So if you are not starting college or a post-secondary institution, then you would have to wait. So we normally tell students to wait till their 12th grade year to start applying for FAFSA. I will say that FAFSA opens normally on October 1st, hopefully. If you have been reading the news, President Biden just signed a bill to make sure October 1st is our launch date for FAFSA moving forward every year. So we want to make sure that you're doing that. And I tell students all the time is that you need to complete your FAFSA as soon as it opens. Go ahead and get it completed, because we do use prior year, which is 2 years data, so your family should have that data information available. And like Ms. Shumblett said earlier, is that most of our universities and colleges, our priority deadline is March 1st. So we ask students to get their stuff in by March 1st, so we can get those awards, those institutional aids, all that great scholarship funding out to students as well.
So great question. We're asking you to work ahead, but not quite that ahead.
Yeah.
So once they become a senior, you want to go ahead and apply at that time. All right, good
Exactly.
deal. Thank you. Another question. Can anyone speak on the next NC scholarship that is available if you qualify for FAFSA?
I could talk about
Okay.
that. So the next NC scholarship, that was a, it's actually a state grant. And basically it's for anyone that has a household size less than, the income bracket less than $80,000. You have to be a state resident. You have to be in at least 6 credits. And that's another thing, you have to complete the FAFSA application. So you cannot, we cannot determine your eligibility. It's nothing you need to apply for. You have to complete the FAFSA. And if you meet those criteria and for that grant, it should be awarded to you. And I believe I think for a community college it's up to $3,000, and for a university you can get up to $5,000 for that funding.
Wow.
Mhm.
Some good
And
money.
that's the reason why we are encouraging you to complete the FAFSA application, because there is state funding that you can receive, but you have to apply early.
So great question, great information. So regardless of your income, regardless of whatever, if you're going to college, complete the FAFSA and see what you get. And
Mhm.
it's just, it opens the doors for so much funding for our young people. If you're just joining us tonight, thank you so much for talking about FAFSA tonight. We're talking about just opening the access for our young people to go to college and to be able to pay for it. And we have a team of panelists tonight who they're sharing some great information with our viewing audience. All right, we're going to move on. Thank you for that information. So we know that you have to work ahead, and planning seems so simple, but in this case, it seems very, very beneficial. So now that we've talked about some of the changes to FAFSA, let's go back to Mrs. Rains. Can you enlighten us on what we need to know? Was there anything else about the changes to FAFSA that you would like to share with us?
Yes, again, Brittany Rains, Career Pathways Coordinator for Cumberland County Schools. And there have been a few changes to the FAFSA for the 25-26 school year. And so if you filled out the FAFSA before, you probably remember it being 100 questions and very overwhelming. It may have taken you more than one day to complete it. But you will be happy to know that this year that there are fewer questions. So it has gone from 100 questions all the way down to 40 questions. And I know you may be saying that still is a lot. However, it is so much better than having to answer 100. And so these questions, they're going to help you to get more to the point and much quicker than in previous years. Also, if you're familiar with the term, the data, the IRS retrieval tool, you may not see that anymore. You will hear that term probably just because people don't know that the name has changed. However, but you will hear the direct data exchange with IRS. That is now what the FAFSA is using to pull your IRS data into this application. It should be more easier to do, as the representatives have stated. Also, you may be familiar with the expected family contribution term, or the EFC, which was stating how much a family can expect to pay. That term has gone away as well. Now we'll hear the student aid index, and this is just how the federal government is determining financial aid eligibility. And then also, Ms. Youngblood alluded to being able to list 20 schools on the FAFSA, and that is new. So in years past, you could only list 10. And so now students who may want to apply to more than 10, you can freely list those on the FAFSA. Again, planning, and really doing your research to know which schools you would like to apply to is very important. And also overall, the whole FAFSA process is much simpler. And so students and families can hopefully expect, so long as you provide all your information, that the wait time to get answers from universities or community colleges won't take so long. So those are some of the key changes that you'll see in this 25-26 FAFSA application.
Good deal. Thank you so much for sharing that important information. Let's keep those questions coming in. If you have questions tonight as we talk about this federal student aid, please put those questions in the chat and we'll answer as many as we can. So now that we understand what the free application for federal student aid is, we know why it is so important for our college-bound students. And we also understand some of the challenges that families may face when applying. And we've even talked about some of the changes to the process. Now, we want to talk about after you've submitted your FAFSA, what happens? What are the next steps? So we're going to go to Fayetteville State University, and we have Crystal Baker here tonight. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Crystal Baker. I am a student support specialist at Fayetteville State in the Office of Scholarships and Financial Aid. So what happens next once the FAFSA is completed? Once you've submitted your FAFSA, you will expect to receive a confirmation email. Again, it was mentioned that to make sure that you put an email address that you can use once you graduate from high school, because those emails will be voided after a certain time frame. So make sure you put an email address that you can go back and forth to look at. Once that's done, you also will be able to access your FAFSA submission. So you can go back to studentaid.gov and look at your application. You can view the summary. If you need to change anything at that time, you can change it. If you wanted to just review the application and make sure things are done correctly, you will be able to do that. Once that's done, the financial aid office would be able to get your application. It's called the Student Aid Index. You may be selected for verification. Some things that we mentioned earlier, students are randomly selected for verification. So please make sure that you stay on top of your emails and submit documentation back to your school to make sure that everything is done in a timely manner. Because once you are selected for verification, it stops with our office. So the ball is in your court. So the responsibility is put back on you to make sure that you provide the documentation that the schools need so you can be awarded. And it was also mentioned that once you select the school that you want to go to, contact those other schools that you put on your FAFSA application, because you cannot receive aid at 2 schools in the same semester. So just keep that in mind as well. You would also need to, if you wanted to, once you get your award packet, if you decide to take out your loans, there are other steps that need to be done. First-time freshmen or first-time borrowers would need to go to studentaid.gov and to make sure that they complete the master promissory note and the entrance counseling. Once both of those are done, then when it's time for disbursements, your loan servicer will send the funds to your university. And then just some key points to remember: once you do the electronic FAFSA, it's usually processed in 1 to 3 business days. That does not mean that the school will receive your FAFSA and be able to look at it. It depends on when the Department of Ed releases the applications to the universities or community colleges. Like if you're doing your FAFSA now, we won't be able to process it to see what you're eligible for until January, to beginning sometime January, February, depends on the Department of Ed. So just keep that in mind. And also reiterate that if you have been selected for verification, please, please, please make sure that you submit the documentation. If you're not sure on what to submit, please contact the financial aid office and they'll be more than happy to assist you to make sure that you'll be awarded.
All right, thank you. That's great information. So you just think about it, you've done all the work, you submitted your FAFSA and you're just excited, but you get an alert. So you don't wanna just leave your email and forget about all of those things that may come. You wanna make sure that everything gets processed successfully, because if you have an alert, you're kind of in limbo until you can get that rectified. So we want to learn a little bit more about that when families receive that alert. We have Mr. Livingston here tonight. Can you share some of the most common alerts that families can receive and the best ways to resolve them?
Thank you. My name is Chris Livingston. I'm a financial aid counselor at Methodist University, and some of the common alerts or issues you might come across after submitting your FAFSA might be if you do not electronically sign your FAFSA, the student and the parent or contributor has to electronically sign the FAFSA individually. So make sure you get that done, or you'll have an incomplete FAFSA, and school can't do anything with that until you get it fixed. Also, we encourage you to use the IRS data retrieval tool. That way, your taxes are linked straight from the IRS. If you decide to manually do it, you might make an error, which might cause your FAFSA to be flagged for verification, like Crystal mentioned. And then you have to turn in documents for the school to verify what you put on the FAFSA to begin with to make sure it's accurate. Sometimes you have conflicting information such as social security numbers or marital status or date of birth matching. So make sure when you do your FSA ID that your social security number and your date of birth is correct, and then it matches what you list on the FAFSA. That way there isn't any conflicting information. The new FAFSA also has progress bars. So when you fill the individual sections of the FAFSA out, you can follow your progress individually through each section, and that way you can see where you are. You can also save your changes and continue the FAFSA at a later time. Also, there's stuff like C codes, which the school gets after the fact. That could be identity, citizenship, being in default, unusual enrollment, or being in Pell Grant, or having loan limits. And then after you submit your FAFSA, about 24 hours after that, you can make corrections if you need to. If you made a typo or you need to add a school, and then the school will receive that afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. That is great information. We're gonna go back to the chat. Our questions have flowed down just a little bit. Tonight, we're talking about the free application for federal student aid and why it's so important to apply early when you're eligible to do so, so that you can gain all of the funds that you need to prepare for your post-secondary education. So we will, we have a question. What do I do if my school says that they did not receive my FAFSA form?
I can answer that for
Okay.
you. The first thing I would do is I always would invite the student back to my office, and we would log into the studentaid.gov website to review the submission. A lot of times when the student has that problem, it could be something on the end of maybe it's in, like Mr. Sampson said, it could be still in draft mode, and it has either the contributor hasn't submitted something. If that is not, if the contributor has signed and the student has signed, normally what we'll do is call the 1-800 number for FAFSA, and we'll find out if there's anything on their end, or we'll ask for the student's DRN number, and we can probably manually try to bring the application in ourselves. But we're going to check some steps before we do that process.
Right, good deal.
Another thing could be the social security number and date of birth not matching what's in the system at the school.
Okay. So I guess if you receive or encounter that issue, they need to check with the school.
Mhm.
I guess they're interested in attending and kind of work together with them to resolve the issue. And
Yes.
worst case scenario, they can reach out to that 1-800 number and hopefully get everything squared away. All right, great question. How can I check the status of my FAFSA form?
Studentaid.gov.
Studentaid.gov?
Studentaid.gov, and another thing that I would like to mention is that although the student and parent will have their own separate FSA ID, now that the student is heading off to college, they're going to check their personal ID, but it's very important for the student to find out what is the communication for the community college or university. So it's very important to find out how they'll be corresponding with the student. So for example, at Fayetteville Technical Community College, we have our self-service and we have our student email. So when students are going to get notified, they're going to get something through their student email and their self-service portal. So it is very important that when they are coming to our institution, that they check the correspondence that's going to come in the mail so they'll know what their login is. And parents, just to let you know that when they go off to college, they're the student now, and you would have to get something called like a FERPA consent form. You will no longer have the access just to pick up the phone and call about what your son or daughter is doing for their financial aid. And we hear it all the time. They say, well, I gave them my tax information. That is not a form of consent. So just to let you know that they're going to be stepping into this adulthood right now. So allow them to do some things on their own, but still guide them. But always tell them to ask them, did you check the communications that the college or the university has provided? Because a lot of information is right there at the touch of their phone, and they can get that information that they need.
Good deal. That's great information. Anybody have anything else to add to that?
I just think families and students need to remember is that we're always at the office and we're always working. So some of our institutions and some of our financial officers, we're even working on Saturdays and Sundays, depending on what events and stuff are going on. So you might get an email on a Saturday from our office to let you know some information that's going on or happening. So as Ms. Youngblood just said, is that some of our institutions, the student email is our official way of communicating to you as a student. Just remember again, that they are adults, and as we are going through, I know at UNC Pembroke, we have about 8,000 students, so trying to communicate with 8,000 students and trying to be able to get one-on-one. You might not get that one-on-one phone call from us to say, hey, you got something to do, but we will get an email as we're making changes in the system and we're making those things available to the students. So it is very important to keep track of your communications. And I always ask my students in orientation, how many of you check your email once a day? How many check once a month? And it's surprising to me when I look at students and I say, how many of you don't know how many unread emails you got? And our hands go up. Like, don't be ashamed. Just make sure that when you're going to college that you're checking it daily. Because as we're making changes in the system, things happen and we get send communications out.
Good deal. Such great information being shared tonight about FAFSA. We appreciate this wonderful panel. We encourage you, if you're a family member or a high school student, please check with your high school counselor. They also have a lot of great information to share with you as you prepare to go through this very important process. If you've heard nothing else tonight, just plan ahead. Ask questions. There's no such thing as a crazy question. This can be a complicated process, but that's what tonight is about, getting you the information and the resources so that you can successfully navigate through this financial aid process. All right, so as we begin to wrap up tonight's session, we want to go back to each panelist and we want their final thoughts, and we're going to allow each of them to share a tip or a resource with you to help you complete the FAFSA successfully. And we'll begin to my right and go across to each panelist.
Yes, I recommend filling the FAFSA out as soon as possible. Taking your time when filling out. This is something you can't do during a weekday, so pick a good day to do it. Take your time, make sure you're prepared, have all your documents so that it's filled out accurately and timely. When you fill the FAFSA out, don't just list the schools that you maybe want to go to, list all of them that you're maybe interested in case you have a backup plan if something doesn't work to where maybe your school is too expensive or something like that. That way another school at least has your FAFSA. When it comes to outside scholarships, you definitely want to check locally versus, doing something where you have to fight against everybody in the country to get an outside scholarship. So maybe your local library, hospitals, things of that nature, maybe some type of organization you or your parent might be involved in, Boy Scouts, sports, something like that. I recommend that.
And I would piggyback on the scholarships, cfnc.org. would be your friend for North Carolina residents. That is a way to determine residency for the NC Next scholarship. And that website also lists different types of scholarships that students can apply for. They have loans as well. And don't be afraid to ask questions. If you feel like you don't understand something, don't just put something down because it may end up hurting you in the long run. Or it may, make your aid be delayed. And we don't want it delayed because we want you to be able to move in with move-in day. We don't want you to say, oh no, your parents come and bring you down, thinking that you'll be able to move in or be able to attend classes. And they say, no, we don't have everything for you. And again, checking your emails, your email that you submitted your FAFSA to and the email that your school email, those should be the top two things that you look at every day because we know that you are gonna be on your phone scrolling. So just stop by your school email address and make sure you didn't miss any pertinent information.
Very true.
I like to tell everyone, utilize the studentaid.gov website. A lot of the information that I provided today, I did get off of the studentaid.gov website. I went to studentaid.gov articles, things you need for FAFSA. It's there. In financial aid, we do have a lot of acronyms. We have a lot of things that you're going to hear when you start going back to school. Cost of attendance, you're going to hear about student loans. You're going to want to know what interest is. On studentaid.gov, they have articles, financial aid dictionary, because coming from high school, going to college, you're going to hear a lot of different things. So it's going to be very beneficial for students and parents to understand the terminologies in the financial aid world. Just to encourage you about scholarships, please research about scholarships because you don't want to get into a high loan debt if it's not necessary. Please understand the cost of attendance when you're going to a school, whether it's community college or university. Coming to a community college, you may not need as much loans as you would go to a university. So if you don't understand those things, student and parents are encouraged to come to the financial aid office and speak to a counselor, specialist, or an advisor just to talk about how much it costs to come to school. You want to talk about that early. You don't want to wait to the last minute to complete your FAFSA application. I always tell my students to make sure that when you're coming to school, explore and experience, visit college campuses. That's very important. Take a career assessments because you want to make sure that you understand that there is a shelf life for financial aid. You cannot have financial aid forever. So you do not want to just go to school and just start taking classes because I just feel like taking classes. Have a concrete plan. So if you don't know what you want to do, it would be advisable to kind of take a career assessment so you kind of know what direction you want to go into. Set realistic expectations, and that is beneficial. Talk to your counselors. That is what your high school counselors are there for, to kind of help you. And look at what you're doing in high school right now. Parents, you're probably seeing your students see your children doing what they want to do when they go into college, so that they can be guided in doing what they need to do. And what are your goals? Do you have a clear picture of your own goals, skills, talents, achievements, and special qualities? And that can help you navigate your education attainment for your post-secondary degree. And that's all I have to say.
Really great information. So I think for me, it's about communication. It's about talking with your financial aid counselors and administrators to make sure you are doing the FAFSA correctly. Ask those questions. I still don't understand why students are so scared to come into the financial aid office and talk to us, because we're here to help you. Our job is to help you as a student and families to walk you through that process of financial aid. And like Ms. Shumbler just mentioned, we'll sit down, we'll talk about cost, what it looks like, what your package could potentially be. That's a good thing with our new formula for the FAFSA, is that we can pretty well tell you what you're going to be eligible for based on what your information is. And so we're able to have that conversation with you and sit down and have that as a family. So communicate with your financial aid officers to make sure that you are going in the right direction. I think about when when you're doing the FAFSA, take your time, read it carefully, make sure you're selecting the right information that you need so we can have the correct information when we get it to the schools. Again, like Dr. Whitley said earlier, don't wait till the last minute. Some families or students think they can, school starts in August, on August 17th, we come on August 16th and do the FAFSA and we're all good and set. That's not right. Like Ms. Baker said earlier, it takes 3 to 5 business days to get the
Exactly.
FAFSA. And it might take another 5 to 7 days to verify your information, depending on what that looks like.
Yeah.
So just start early. And like I tell my students at my institution, is that your financial aid office can probably have a Zoom or a WebEx with you to go through those, share screens, go through that process with you step by step. Some of our institutions, I know UNCP and I know Fayetteville Tech Community College is open late on some nights. So we're open till 7 o'clock on Tuesday nights, and you're open till 7.
Well, we do 6 o'clock.
6
We have-
o'clock.
Yeah.
So we're open late, even though for those families who are working all day and can't get off, we're here in the evenings to help you as well, to walk you through that process. Ms. Youngblood and her team has FAFSA nights. We have FAFSA on wheels, which means that we actually get on the bus and we go out to the communities that we serve, and we actually do FAFSAs in the parking lot of Food Line or Maxway or wherever we are. We've been to Fayetteville a couple of times to do FAFSA on wheels. So it's a great time, and all of our institutions have something in place to help you have those conversations and help you to do that process. Again, start early. I can't stress enough to start early with the process, because we want to make sure that you are able to go to school debt-free. Most of you, depending on what school you go to, but we want to make sure that we're giving you all the advantages of a college education and also the awarding that we need for that process as well.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, so just a few things that I would like to share. Your high school counselor is going to be an excellent resource for you as you are completing the FAFSA, or even just going through your college planning journey and trying to figure out maybe what it is you want to do. Ms. Youngblood alluded to those career assessments. North Carolina passed a law that states that all students have to have a career development plan, particularly in 8th grade as they be promoted to the 9th grade, and then again in 10th grade to be promoted to the 11th grade. So as you're working together with your child, make sure that you're asking them those things. What are you interested in? What opportunities are available through the high school or even the middle school? I'm a believer that it's never too early to start planning for your future. There are too many resources out here, especially within Cumberland County schools, too many opportunities available for students to find themselves in a space or a place where they don't have what they need. There's a wealth of resources in Cumberland County schools, and I just believe that no one should have to go to college without the financial resources that they need at this point in time. Also, your high school counselors, they get scholarships that come through their emails and offices all the time. A lot of times counselors are begging for students to fill out these applications, and that should not be the case. So please take the time to, if you don't know who your counselor is, get to meet them and find out what scholarships have come through so that you can be on the forefront of hopefully receiving those. Also, there are organizations like the Cumberland Community Foundation that offer a wealth of scholarships. I mean, hundreds of scholarships that are available. And I'm not just talking about small scholarships. These are big scholarships, but you have to complete your FAFSA to be able to be eligible and to apply for those. So do note that the FAFSA application is not just to receive money from the federal government or even just from the state, but also for some of the local organizational scholarships as well. They will require that your FAFSA is completed. So know that this is a very important application. No scholarship is too small, and that there are just really a lot of resources available. We have a few FAFSA nights that are coming up in partnership with our Career and Technical Education Department and our Student Services Department in conjunction with FTCC, Fayetteville State, and Methodist to provide even more opportunities for assistance with the FAFSA. So be on the lookout as we come to some of the local high schools to provide this information and assistance to complete your FAFSA. Our goal is really to help you get what you need to pursue the goal that you have. And so if college is where you're going, we want to help you get there, and we want you to be successful. So be on the lookout for those announcements at your schools through our communications department. And just know that we are here indeed to help. As everyone has said here, we are here for you.
Wow, thank you. Lots of great, valuable information this evening as we talk about the free application for federal student aid. Guess what? If you missed tonight's session, This session will be available on demand on the Cumberland County Schools website. So if you're just joining us, it'll be on our Facebook page. It's also on YouTube. It's even on X. So we're just trying to get the information out there. Lots of valuable information that has been shared. So we just want to thank you, our Facebook audience, for joining us tonight. Thank you for spending your time. We appreciate all of the thoughtful questions. Our panelists, they've shared so much helpful information. So before I close, on behalf of Cumberland County Schools and the students and families we serve, I just want to say thank you for your investment of time and for being here tonight and sharing such great information with our viewing audience. We really, really appreciate it. If you're interested in learning more about FAFSA, please visit our website. And as Mrs. Raines shared, please reach out to your school counselor. Many of the individuals, even on this panel, they've talked about how they're even open to answering your questions. Some of them have extended hours. So really, all you need to do, nothing to it but to do it, right?
Exactly.
You talked about the Community Foundation, Mrs. Raines. We're helping to push out information. So many great scholarship opportunities, but once again, you have to fill out the FAFSA first to be eligible. And some are income dependent, and some, regardless of your income, you may be eligible. So just take the time to do it. If you have questions, we have resources here to support you every step of the way. Here in Cumberland, our goal is to help you go from the classroom to the career of your choice. So we thank you once again. This has been a great session tonight and very informative. Thank you for tuning in, and we wish you all the best on your journey to college success. Have a good night.